Very good evening, friends. So, we were discussing regarding the Roberts philosophy and the chapter that is the drug proving from third year syllabus. We are on concluding part of this chapter where Robert has tried to explain the Hahnemannian concept in his own lucid language. He tried to explain what is the importance of drug proving, how it should be conducted, what are the points which are essential in drug proving, and how one should go ahead. Same is true when selecting the potency for drug proving, and he has mentioned the three rules. In the last part, we have discussed those three rules regarding this drug proving. So, first rule was that any drug, when in its natural state, affects the vital energy, but little, will develop proving only in high potency. That is the first important rule which he has mentioned. So any drug substance in crude form never has any action over there, then definitely you have to prove it in a high potency. There are certain drugs which acts in natural state or disturb the vital energy to the functional manifestations should be proved in the potentized form. Should be proved in crude form. And third one, that is that he has mentioned, any drug which in its natural state disturb the vital energy to destructive manifestation should be proved only in high potency. So these are three rules. These are for the purpose of proving, not for the purpose of applying to the patient. But we can understand the depth of the remedy on the basis of that. After proving, we understand how much this remedy can penetrate in the human being. How, if you know that in the crude form, this remedy or this drug substance has such certain properties, we can apply it according to it. So this is very important thing which we can understand on the basis of this. So for a simple example, I used to tell every time is related with the onion, LMC. Onion in crude state, even you have not ingested it, just you are cutting the onion and you get the symptomatology of it. You start getting the lacrimation, you start getting the nasal discharge and sometimes sneezing and all those things. Even you have not consumed the thing. So if it happens so, then definitely that remedy, you don't have to go for high potency while prescribing. You can give that remedy in low potency and it is sufficient for the patient. You don't have to go even for 200 also in LMC. Many times 30 is sufficient because it is in crude state itself, it acts so strongly. And those are the things which he highlighted over there. And let us go ahead with the next paragraph, what he says over there. He mentioned over there in last paragraph, which we have discussed, the object of proving is to produce the characteristics of the drugs as they manifest in the disease state. So that is the object. We used to prove the drug in order to get exactly the characteristics of the remedy so that we can easily differentiate a patient from another patient. And then further he says, on page number 139, last paragraph, the comparatively inert substances will produce no symptoms. At best, a very few symptoms of low value in crude state, and these are not characteristics of the drug. Either no symptoms are produced, or if perchance a few symptoms are produced, they are not strikingly peculiar to that drug. The inert substances are expelled from the body before they reach the dynamics of the system, the vital energy. So, in what he is explaining that crude substances, if they are inert in their crude state, never used to produce symptoms, or if used to produce symptoms, they are not distinctive or characteristic. So you cannot differentiate remedy. For that purpose, they should be proved in high potencies. In the provings of the active or corrosive poisons in low or crude state, the same thing is true. They are valueless because the gross irritating symptoms are the result of mechanical disturbances, or pre-strikingly characteristic symptoms of the drugs are never observed. Corrosive, for example, we'll take a simple example, acid nitric. If you would give it in crude form to the human being, what will happen? It will completely burn the mouth, the tongue, the because that is primary action. It used to produce that typical action which will directly make a corrosion of that part. So it is directly producing pathology. That is not the symptom. That is a primary action, and that's why such a poisons you have to, when you have to get a drug proving from them, should be proved in high potency. The corrosives are expelled very quickly in the crude state because of the violence of their action, and so do not influence the vital energy to produce characteristic symptoms. Therefore, symptoms that are produced are of little value because they are all common to all corrosive poisons. So, any poison in crude form will not going to produce its symptoms which are necessary for homeopathic prescribing. If you want a result from them, if you want the symptomatology from them, then you have to potentize them. You have to potentize them, and then you have to give it for the proving. Then you get the data. Then we get a Restox proving. Then we get the Aconite proving. Then we get the Belladonna proving. There are many more. All poisons are there, in fact. Then we get Nux moschata over there. Then we get the opium over there, where the total symptomatology we can get. And on that symptomatology, we can differentiate one individual from the another individual, or one remedy from another remedy. So when you are giving inner substances, or when you are taking poisons for proving, they should be always given for the proving in the dynamic high potency. The susceptibility of the patient of lower must be taken into consideration. That is another part which is highlighting over there. This regulates and gives us direction as to the quantity of drug to be taken. So if the patient is susceptible, then you have to decide what potency you have to give. The greater the susceptibility, less the quantity required to react upon the vital force. For if the organism is overwhelmed suddenly, at first, we may get only generic symptoms and so fail to obtain the characteristic symptoms and thus fail in our object. On the other hand, if he is only moderately susceptible, we may obtain valuable results from the larger doses. Our standard should be to use the low dose and quantity that will thoroughly permeate the organism and make its essential impression upon the vital force, and thus affect the functional sphere of his body. So our aim of the proving is to stimulate the vital force. Our aim of the proving is not to produce the primary action. So our aim of proving is not giving a tea and finding it out what it causes in crude form. No. If we want to prove the tea, then we have to prepare it, make it dynamic, and then you have to give that stimulus. That stimulus will act on the vital force, and that human being reaction will be expressed, and that will be useful for us. So see, these are the things which we have to take into consideration. So the thing which he has mentioned is very important, that our aim of the object of the proving is to get the characteristic symptom, and this happens only when you give a dynamic dose which impress upon the vital force. This is the best accomplished when the gradual impress is made rather than a sudden onslaught. Onslaught means halla. Onslaught. Rather than a sudden onslaught, for then we would bring into picture because because of violent functional disturbances which certainly defeat our object. So when the first dose is followed by no marked symptoms, the second dose may be given, and then a period of waiting until some symptoms appear. If after the interval of waiting there is no appearance of symptoms, another dose may be given. By this gradual introduction of the drug, the system becomes pervaded by its action and tolerates it and responds to the specific impression, and we obtain the characteristic. Again, very important thing which he is telling over there. That here you have to go gradually. You don't go on repeating the dose for proving so fast. You give the one dose. Let us see what happens. If nothing happens, then you have to wait. Again, you have to give second dose. Again, you have to wait. Because sometimes the patient or that prover will react gradually. So you have to wait instead of repeating it so fast. So this gradual impression upon the vital force is most important, because then we get the symptomatology that will be helpful for us for the treatment. Then he further says, in carrying out the provings by the higher potencies, only the very susceptible will respond. This is no reflection upon the value of proving made from the higher potencies, because we only obtain the characteristics of the remedies from such proving. The fact that the more obtuse prover does not respond, does not have any weight, for under any potency proving, he will only produce generic symptoms. Symptoms held in common with the whole family, we are proving. This contributes nothing to the knowledge of the drugs, which will be of value to in cure of the disease. Neither does the fact that the obtuse prover does not respond to develop approving of the remedy influence the value of the drug in its applications to the sick. For when the vital energy is disturbed, it is far more susceptible to influence from the drug than when vital energy in state of equilibrium. From the very nature of the case, symptoms produced from the higher potencies are genuine and are of highest value as a curative agent. So he explains over there important things which are related with the proving done in high potency. If the patient is prover is susceptible and you have given high potency, a single dose is sufficient and which worked, which has started producing symptomatology. And those symptoms which appears after giving that stimulus in high potency are the symptoms which are characteristic enough, which are very useful in selecting the remedy for the patient. Those symptoms we can get from such a sensitive individual. But if the individual is not susceptible, is obtuse, then you don't get a characteristic symptoms out of them and you never get a proper proving. So he's explaining all pros and cons for the proving and explaining how to go ahead with the susceptible persons and with the low susceptible states. In low susceptible states, you have to go for low potency in repeated doses. In highly susceptible states, you have to go for high potency with less repetition. So repetition of the dose is very important, and that repetition, even in applying the medicine, same rule follows. And that's what he explains in the next paragraph. The repetition of the dose will be governed by the nature of drug and reaction of the vital energy. See what he says. Here you can get the knowledge of potency. Some drugs like silica or lycopodium are slow in action. Underline. We forget these sentences. Students ask me, sir, from where we can get this knowledge? Which is slow acting, which is fast acting. This has been mentioned in our literature. We never goes with it. We never understand them. So what he says, some drugs like silica and lycopodium are slow in action and should be administered at long intervals, while others are quick to give a reaction and shorter in duration, in their duration. This is what Robert is saying. This is what Hahnemann has said. This is what Kent has said. But people are there who never understands those things which are explained by the Stalwart. This explains that how the calcarea is slow and how aconite is fast and it is not so. They never read, but they are dictatorial and telling their own understanding, which is not thorough enough. See, what is mentioned is the understanding of the robot regarding the remedy and the person who has that capacity to tell, who has worked very hard to understand this. because of which he is able to tell you, yes, silica is slow in action, calcarea is slow in action, like podium is slow in action, Barata is most slow in action. We have to understand aconite is very fast pace, stramonium fast pace, naxomica, chamomilla, LMCPA very fast pace. We have to understand this depth, and that's why it is necessary to read the philosophy. This philosophy explains you understanding about the remedies very clear. However, this is an absolutely dependable rule. Never repeat the dose while symptoms are manifest from the dose already taken. These are the rules for repetition improving. And underline this first rule, never repeat the dose while symptoms are manifest from the dose already taken. If there are students who are there, this is the question which is asked in the examination, rules for repetition of the dose, 2 marks questions. There are two rules. First rule is this, never repeat the dose while symptoms are manifest from the dose already taken. So this is for the proving. This is the same rule applied to the proving as governs the administration of the remedy in cure of sickness. And second, never repeat your remedy so long as it continues to act. If you would have given remedy to the patient, depending upon simillimum, and patient is improving, what he says, never repeat the remedy till the first dose which was given is still acting. This is for the practice. This is for the patient. These two rules are the rules of repetition of the doses. And these are very, very important, even from exam point of view. The reason is an obvious. In one case, as in other, it is absolutely essential to obtain the proving of real value and integrity as showing forth the characteristics of the drug and the order of the symptoms in their development. What he is saying? It is absolutely essential to obtain the proving of a real value. We must have thorough proving. The integrity as showing forth the characteristics of the drug. Proving should show you a characteristics with which you can go for ahead. And second important thing which he is explaining, the order of symptoms, how they have appeared, which are the symptoms, which comes first, which comes later, which comes last, everything. The order is also important from your point of view. Symptoms are produced in sequences. What he is saying? Symptoms are produced in sequences, and it is important to know the first effects as shown in the symptom, the sequence of their appearance and their duration, and the repetition of the dose defeats our purpose by upsetting the sequence, and continued repetition destroys the knowledge of the latest symptoms to appear, which are always the most valuable, and because they are the most characteristic and farthest removed from the possible pathogenetic action. So, we must understand this sequence because then we can decide after applying the remedy, we must decide whether to repeat or whether not to repeat. What are the symptoms which came according to the proving, and if we understand that sequence, then it becomes rather simple to prescribe. And that's why he says, and the repetition of the dose defeats our purpose of by upsetting this sequence, and continued repetition destroys knowledge of least symptoms to appear, which are always the most valuable because they are the most characteristic and farthest removed from the possible pathogenetic action. If we go on repeating the symptom, repeating the remedy during proving, you have given first dose and patient has reacted very nicely, then there is no need to repeat it. If we repeat, we're going to get only the primary symptoms. We're not going to get the proving properly. And for that purpose, it is always better to wait along. If it has started its action, just go on listening and go on writing down what you can observe and what you can listen from the patient. You get the symptoms which came later are very important in your proving, which we miss if you go or if you are impatient during proving. And that's why one should not be very impatient. In fact, the person who is doing the proving should not be an impatient personality. And then he says, the duty of recording symptom in their order of appearance is very important And quite as important is the duty of recording the concomitant symptoms, their associates, which, while seemingly unrelated to the case, yet bear a close relationship in that they appear in the same time and in association with other symptoms. So what he is saying? He is saying that recording of the concomitant symptoms during drug proving is most valuable, which guides you to get a exactly picture, because in many patients you get such types of symptoms. That's why Kent says there are symptoms which are peculiar, queer, rare, strange varieties. And every symptom has its own value. Queer symptom, for example, in carbolic acid, there is a one queer symptom. Queer means vichitra, not logically correlated with the thing. So, there is one symptom in carbolic acid. If you open your Alensky notes or Borix Medica, there is one symptom. Much walking causes abscesses in our body, in the prover's body, but most commonly in the right ear. This is the symptom. Is there any correlation? Is there any logic that walking causes abscess in the body or specifically in right ear? Not at all. Queer symptom. It is queer, but which is present. Such types of symptoms always gives you or guides you to the proper remedy if they are present in the patient. And that's why when you prove the remedies, we must be very thorough regarding it and we must know each and everything about it. So we are on concluding part. Tomorrow we'll finish this drug proving chapter and then we'll go ahead with the next chapter. So that's all for today. Thank you being there. We'll meet at evening at 8:15 with a very interesting remedy. And the remedy which we used to get very commonly in our practice, that is the sepia from third year syllabus. So that's all for today. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.